Welcome back to the latest episode of the Mad Sopranos Men Show. We're your hosts, Michael Dennis and Chris Brodhead. We are the most autistic Mad Men show on the internet. We're also the most autistic Sopranos show on the internet because we're analyzing both shows one episode at a time, season by season. Right now, I believe we're on episode, is it nine? Nine? It's Boca and Shoot. Boca for Sopranos and Shoot for Mad Men. Chris, how you doing in sunny Spain?
Doing great, man. My extreme, what are those called? Hamstrings. My extreme hamstring pain. It's hard to say. It's finally going away, so maybe I'll be able to work out one of these days.
Well, good. Glad to hear it, man. You guys got settled in a new place, correct?
Yeah, we got a new place. It's nearly double the maximum I said I would spend. But it's in an awesome neighborhood, and it's freaking everything you would expect from paying double.
At least you're getting what you pay for.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, how's the fam?
We're doing fine. We went to Detroit last weekend to visit my wife's family and my wife's parents. And, just spending a weekend in sunny, happy Detroit, Michigan, was more than enough to wear everybody out. So even though we got back like Monday, everybody's just been tired all week. Jenny, of course, goes on vacation and comes back like with every disease imaginable. And it's just, and I'm just kind of tired. I'm just sleepy. Meanwhile, it looks like she's got hit with like the flu times 10. It just comes in the other night with a nose like Rudolph's just dripping constantly. It's like, I can't believe we're all sick. I'm like, no, you're sick. We're fine. I don't know what your problem is.
Yeah. Oh, well, hope she feels better.
But
did she get it from the kids?
No, the kids are fine. I just think she got it from being on the road and not sleeping and just, everything that goes along with that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm fine. I'm doing good for now. We'll see. Give it 12 hours. Who knows what I'll end up with. But let's rock and roll. In these two episodes, last week we came off of two episodes you and I really consider to be some of the best of Sopranos and of Mad Men. And this week, I don't think either one of these are a top 10, but there's certainly a lot going on. And we're certainly seeing a lot of our characters further develop. Especially Don. You talked last week about this idea that kind of Don was fully formed early on in the series, and that's really not the case. I think this is another episode of Don further feeling himself and further feeling his position with the company and also with inside the world of advertising.
Mm-hmm. And to put my 2 cents on the ranking of this Sopranos episode, this might be my least favorite Sopranos episode.
Okay.
That I've seen.
So far?
I've not seen them all.
Yeah. It's choppy. It's odd. The overall structure of it having to do with the coach of the girls' soccer team having an affair, and then Tony eventually deciding not to take the law into his own hands. That mirrors Melfi's struggle in season 3 after she gets raped to sick Tony and his men on her assailant. But each of them end up choosing the right path. But yeah, I felt this was an odd episode. Even when I remember when I first saw it 25 years ago, it was odd.
Yeah, it just I don't feel it develops any characters in interesting or important ways. Like Tony is so upset when I forget the chef's name. He
Artie
comes and talks to him, tells him not to. Artie tells him not to do it, and then he's like really upset as if like something very serious is happening, and it's like this is nothing to Tony. Like this is like killing a mosquito or something. Like I don't understand why the stakes are supposed to be this high.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
they're
it's just because the daughters are involved on the team, and everything is like super personal because of that. I understood the stakes in Mad Men. That was very clear. And the power play that Don does to keep his wife in the home. But I didn't feel. That's a good point. I didn't feel like what they were telling me was matching what I saw on screen in Sopranos.
Yeah, just I mean, obviously, I'm like halfway through season 4 of Sopranos. Like, I've seen Tony have to make like life and death decisions, and he gets upset, and you're like, I understand why he's upset. Like, his best friend's gonna die. But here it's like Artie leaves, and he's just fuming, and he like smashes the dish with the teacup on it, and you're like. I'm like, what the? No, like, he's not that upset.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't care.
Yeah. It's
like, that's a reaction to having to kill pussy.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, it's odd where they draw the line, and considering where they end up going, and where also as you know, what the characters have already done in their lives so far, it doesn't match up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's there's that's our A story on Sopranos. Our B story is Uncle Junior and his love of oral, which does lead us eventually to one of the great lines in The Sopranos. Psychiatry and cunnilingus have brought us to this moment, but that's not for a few more episodes. But yeah, a solid gay panic B storyline here in The Sopranos as well.
That was another thing that did not connect with me was, okay, so we have this thing in the Sopranos universe where if a man admits to or is caught giving cunnilingus to a woman, it's like, 10% less bad than him just, sucking a dude's dick or whatever.
Yeah.
And whatever, like, that's the rules of this universe. Like, I'll go with it. But the way that Corrado, like, pissed off Tony enough for Tony to bring it up and make fun of him was so forced.
Yeah.
And, like, awkward. They're at golf, and Corrado's just like, well, if you would have caught that fly ball, I would have made $50. And you're like, where the fuck is this coming from?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is so forced and like unnatural.
Yeah, and
I was just like, dude,
No, you're right. You're right. How he's bringing it up, how it's just handled. Would Junior know immediately that's what Tony's referring to anyway?
Dude, Junior's such a fucking idiot. I don't think so.
Yeah, I just don't get it. I don't get it. I was listening to the Talking Sopranos podcast with Michael Imperioli and Steve Sciarippa about this episode, and they kept kind of driving home the point that this is a real thing inside of the Italian community, about if you suck one thing, you'll suck anything, and a gay panic around that. So I'm not disputing that is a real thing.
No, I'm not arguing with that as a story element. That's fine. Like, I mean, it's fine as a story element. Like, say what you will about accepting it. I don't feel any issue going down on my wife or any women from my past.
This is not a podcast that shames cunnilingus. This is not what we do here.
Those two things, I struggled to kind of those two reasons are probably why this is my least favorite episode so far. I haven't had any issues like that with any episodes of Sopranos, except for this one.
Well, get ready for a heads up because next week's episode blows. So I hate to sound like one of those guys who talk about Breaking Bad, but look, Chris, you just got to get through these next couple episodes and then it gets really good. Oh, by the way, I was talking.
I did get through all the episodes
Yeah.
on Breaking Bad, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
And you should do it.
Well, I've tried it like 5 times, and at this point, I don't have a
Yeah.
6th in me.
Just start on season 2.
Start on season 2.
I don't even know. Yeah.
Okay.
It does get good. It's you can't write better than Mad Men, and you cannot write better than Breaking Bad.
Yeah. Maybe that should be our next season where we introduce Breaking Bad into this, and I add one episode at a time and my commentary on it. But yeah, really, really stunted. Just it felt odd. It felt awkward almost at all times.
The coach is a terrible actor.
Yeah, and I don't. I also don't understand. Everyone in the mob just seems extra stupid in this episode. Where
they're all like caricatures of themselves.
Yeah, it's like even the part where like Silvio like rips his shirt off at the game and starts. That's this episode, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where he goes nuts at the game and gets booed, and then they show up on the field to intimidate the coach with Artie, and then like Paulie with the delivering the television, like. I don't know. It's like, hey, this guy's gonna leave us and go somewhere else to coach. Yo, just send over that $1,000 TV set. He'll be so scared, he'll definitely stay. Like, I don't know. Is that a thought process? Is that?
Yeah, and also, maybe I'm not to these episodes yet, but like, does Syl's daughter, does Syl having the same age daughter as Tony and Artie ever come up again?
No.
Like, that seemed like such a Deus Ex Machina. Like, oh no, all their daughters are the same age.
Yeah, and if you really want to get into the weeds on that, having a daughter the same exact age, them all being the same exact age, does not match with the timeline of Many Saints of Newark. So that's a whole nother thing. Oh, here's something I read the other day.
Well, that's canon. So
that David Chase admitted he did not rewatch the series before he wrote Many Saints of Newark. and to me, like, that quote now officially moves David Chase and Many Saints of Newark into Star Wars prequel territory, where the creator clearly doesn't understand his own creation as well as just random people on the internet do. And
dude, you've watched the Simpsons commentaries, right?
Yes.
Dude, every one of those, they're like, I totally forgot about this character. We should bring him back.
Yeah. And they're just talking about characters that are dead.
Yeah, well, they're just talking about characters that they completely forgot about.
Oh.
Like, this is their show. They wrote this character. They wrote this story, and they're completely oblivious. They're like, I completely forgot we did this.
Yeah.
I reread, a script that I, haven't touched for 6 or 12 months or whatever. I'm like, who the fuck wrote this? I don't remember writing any of this.
Yeah. And it's just, you can become disattached from it, but there are all these simple rules and realities that you place into this universe that you have to acknowledge, and you have to continue with them. Otherwise, the house of cards just totally falls apart. That reminds me, that's funny you mentioned The Simpsons about this. The most egregious example of this, and I remember this is when I started to turn on the show itself. It's an episode like in season 10 or 11 where they go back to Scotland or something, or they go to England, and we have a scene with Willie and his father, and it's a scene where they just stand around and barely acknowledge each other. And that made me so mad as a kid that they broke the canon of, I did not cry when my own father was hung for stealing a pig, but I'll cry now. That bothered me so much. I was like, well, it might be time to stop watching The Simpsons.
Dude, that was one of the last episodes I watched as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if I connected those dots, but I'm probably subconsciously I did.
Oh no, I remember watching it and connecting those dots. And I would have forgiven it if the joke or the payoff to that was something funny, but it was literally nothing whatsoever. So it's like, oh, we're going to just destroy canon now literally for throwaway jokes. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. This is where we...
Well, I think that's... After season 11, it was like they had done every storyline they could do. So the only thing left was canon destruction.
Yeah, there was only left to go back and do that. So yeah, I mean,
And they've only been doing that for 20 fucking years since.
I'm starting to, and you and I have talked about this. I'm starting to think now that they've just had the AI film producing machines crank out Simpsons episodes, and there's no one actually creating or voicing the Simpsons anymore. That it's just they put it into the program, and then it's like, oh, here's Homer's dialogue for this week. Enter, and then it spits it out in an audio file, and that's what the show is.
Yeah, I mean, like we literally have the technology like at our fingertips to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm sure, these billion-dollar studios probably had that for longer than us.
Yeah, but the canon is weird in this episode. I don't know. I don't really have any more thoughts on the Sopranos this week.
I have, having thoroughly trashed it, your favorite show that keeps your father alive in your mind. I do have a lot of overlaps or a lot of similarities that I noticed.
Yeah. Go right ahead. Let's dive in.
Yeah. Okay. So, we have talks of, McCann talks about being in a towel in a steam room, talking with two other advertising
millionaires
owning company, millionaires, talking about Don. And then Corrado and his underling are in towels talking about Tony.
Yeah. That's a good observation. But here's something else I thought of a second ago about the mob is trying to get the school teacher to do something. They're trying to influence him to stay at a job
with gifts.
Yeah, with gifts. Over on The Sopranos, we have Don being wooed internally and externally by a new job, and the forces that are trying to get him to do what they want. So we have two different employees, each trying to be tempted through various means to change teams, to change roles and how they react to it.
Yeah, and both bribery attempts fail.
Yes,
spectacularly.
Yeah, that's a good observation.
Yeah.
What else?
I have. If you can't, Corrado says, if you can't get your friends jobs, what's the point of success? Don's success gets Betty a job as well.
Yeah, and Don's decisions, cost Betty the job ultimately. I got a question for you while we're on the topic. Does if nothing goes wrong with Sally and the dog and the neighbor, is Don as against? Does Don make a play to not go to McCann? Is Don so against his wife working if things go fine at home during that one day?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you the same question. I have a lot of issues with the Sopranos episode, but this episode, I mean, this is at least the 5th, if not 10th time I've seen this episode. I don't fully understand why Don doesn't want Betty to model.
Yeah.
Like, is it because he wants to come home to a meal and his family's sitting there all perfect? Does he think the modeling pictures are too good and Betty's going to leave him?
Yeah.
Does he think the modeling pictures are bad? He looks at him and he's upset. I'm like, I cannot get a read on his exact reaction here.
Yeah.
Is he worried for the kids' safety? Is that why? Like, he could easily get a better babysitter than that, like, old woman. So I have what are your thoughts? I'm at a loss.
I know I'm at a loss too, because then in the end when he's talking to her about it not working out, and he's like, he basically says, like, I don't need you at home to fix this meal all the time, and that's not about this. So that would fly in the face of some of the rationale that you just threw out there. I'm in the same boat. I cannot get a read on this for Don. It to me, it either comes down to he he doesn't want his wife out there because he knows she's good at it and because he has an eye for it and he knows how beautiful she is, and she might leave him and leave this world that he's built. Um, it's also that, and I think he also, if it fails, he doesn't want to have to hear about it. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like a lot of the problems I have with my wife are people are just like, I just don't want to hear about the the fallout. Maybe if I could just address it and help try to fix it, but the fallout of whatever this thing falling apart will be much worse than the actual thing falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I don't. It could be, like you said, it could be any one of a number of things, but I also don't get a read on it.
Mm-hmm. So, do we think this is purposely written mysteriously, or this is poor writing?
I I think it would have to be poor because we're already at a certain point where there's so much mystery about Dick Whitman and Don Draper that
Mm-hmm.
we almost need more direction. Um, we almost need to be handheld a little bit about what his actual goal here is, because also, you know, I have a thing written down here about Roger's pitch to Don, and it's basically about sentimentality. And he's like, you're giving up more than just the money. You're giving up this place. He implies you're giving up the people, himself. He's appealing to Don's sentimentality. When a week ago, Cooper brings Don in, gives him the check, and basically says, you and I are alike. We are not sentimental about anyone we work with. So then what is Don's reason for not going to McCann?
Mm-hmm.
If he's also not
Yeah.
sentimental, what's the thing keeping him there? Wouldn't the character we're starting to know of Don Draper as he's climbing his way up the ladder, if he's actually not sentimental, wouldn't he have taken this job?
Yeah. I mean, because for the rest of the series, Don talks about, I don't want Mohawk, I want American.
Yeah.
I don't want whatever shitty cola, I want
Yeah,
Coke.
Coke keeps getting dangled in front of him. He keeps wanting to go back to American Airlines.
Yeah.
I mean, the obvious
Yeah.
answer is because then we wouldn't have a show. But as a character, I mean, why wouldn't he have taken that gig?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that seeing it from this perspective and knowing they needed to keep Don with Sterling Cooper and not McCann to get 7 seasons out of the show.
Yeah.
It's like, then we must assume that he didn't want Betty to model for fear that she would leave him or the house would be in disarray. So, I mean, that's the only explanation we can take for the only logical explanation we can take from this.
Yeah.
So that must be what they're doing. It was just not clearly communicated.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought another thing that didn't exactly fit right was Pete getting really upset with Ken and attacking Ken. I feel like that came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand, like, they make one joke about Peggy, like one joke, that's it, and that's what really sets him off. But I didn't think that was earned. That didn't feel earned at all.
Yeah. I mean, Pete was like really emo in the last episode when everybody was dancing and he like wasn't dancing.
Yeah.
And he like wanted Peggy. But yeah, it seems weird. Like, I don't remember. I guess we'll get to it. Like, does Pete longing for Peggy come to some sort of conclusion? Because it's not a part of season 2 at all.
I mean, the only argument I can make the case for the end of season, I think it is the end of season 2, where Pete confesses his love for her, and then she tells him about the baby, and it's I could have had you if I wanted, but this wasn't what I wanted, and this wasn't the life that I wanted. Is that the end of this arc?
I mean, because I don't recall any any sequences in season 2 where Pete's actions are affected from his love for Peggy, right? Like there's never moments where he's like, if only I could have Peggy, then my life would be complete.
I don't think so, but I remember them having some back and forth when Pete's dad dies in a plane crash, and them being close and here and there. But I always viewed Peggy to Pete as like Peggy is this ethereal thing, this other. Oh, if I could only be with her or be not with my wife, then my life would be better. And that's was kind of this childish image that he had of Peggy and of a life they could build. And I feel like that is kind of dashed when she tells him about the baby and all that. But I don't know, where does this fight go? Where does this love of Peggy in season 1 go?
Yeah. No, this is we're getting a glimpse behind the curtain, I think, in this episode. Like in my opinion, the previous 8 episodes were nearly flawless, or at least I couldn't find any flaws, but I do have an issue or two with this episode. So it seems like episode 9 of these series, we got some issues with.
We're hitting a wall here, and it's kind of like before the big build to the end. And they kind of don't know where to put people or what to do with them. I'm assuming, here's a thought I had. We're 9 episodes into both. I could argue that we've had one really heavy Carmela episode, and that's the college episode. But that's it. This is now like the second episode that really dedicates itself to Betty and to what she's up to. So I was just surprised, like kind of on my big tally board, that Betty has 2 full episodes where that Carmela does not.
Yeah, that's a good point. I do, I'm noticing just infinitely more watching the Mad Men episodes, like looking for similarities with Sopranos. So I'm picking up on a lot more stuff, and it seems that like this is the only episode I can think of where Betty is like genuinely happy and like, so happy that it's like overflowing her.
Yeah.
And she's like kind and nice to Don.
She has an outlet for something.
Yeah, she has some leg to stand on. She feels good about something in her life. She feels like she's contributing or worth a shit.
Yeah. And that's even reflected, early on in the episode when she has her meeting with her psychiatrist, and she's like, what she basically talks about wanting something to do. And, what do? Do you just get married and then you just sit around and wait? So, her getting out of the house and having some outlets for her talents, for her personality, and for her looks, that does wonders for her. Would Don's life with her have been happier if he just let her out of the house for 2 days a week to go do some stuff?
I think so.
Does she just, for all the issues he has with her, do some of those correct themselves if she has an outlet, if she has something to do, rather than focus on just him and whatever is in their life?
Yeah, I think you could make a strong argument in that direction.
Yeah.
And like you said, the show would end if they did that, because he would go to McCann.
Yeah, they went to McCann, or if she, go to season 2 where she really takes up her horse riding, and that takes up a big part of her energy, but that just leads to more trouble and more stuff. Betty needs a job.
Yeah, she's just bored, idle hands.
Man. Yeah, extremely idle. But yeah, this is.
But to put a cherry on top of that, a similarity I had between both these episodes was breaking a nice woman's heart at the end of the episode for the selfish needs of a man.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, Corrado, he smashes the cake into his girlfriend's face to save his reputation, and Don, to keep Betty to himself, stops her from modeling.
Yeah. Yeah, good observation there.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, what was the more surprising shooting on each show? Is it Janice popping Richie, or is it Betty pulling out the piece and shooting at the birds?
Probably Janice shooting Richie.
I agree.
Um,
I agree.
yeah. But I do love Betty shooting the birds.
Yeah.
Like with the cigarette in her mouth. That is cinema.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah. I like that bookend.
Yeah.
I don't know. I hated the neighbor just because
Oh, fuck that guy.
Like, what'd you?
I was telling Erica, I was like, if I lived in suburbia and a dude said that to my kids, like, I would beat the fuck out of that guy.
Yeah. Yeah. If my next door neighbor said that he was going to put my dog down, I'd be like, well, here's a good idea. Why don't you make sure the dog's not around before you start letting loose all the wild animals that you keep caged up feet from him? We're hardly ever outside. You could wait 4 minutes until we go back in.
Yeah.
To let out this animal around these other animals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, I hated that guy.
Oh, dude. Fuck that guy. And they're pigeons, man. Like, I don't want to hurt any animals, but like, there's not much above a pigeon.
There's plenty more where that came from. Like, you can go find another pigeon. I promise you that. I didn't disagree with Dom where he's like, it's like 2 a.m. He's like, now I should go over there right now. Yeah, you should. Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, saying you're going to hurt someone's dog, like, that's more than enough. But saying it to like a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
Like, dude, that's traumatic.
Yeah, that's like a war crime.
Yeah. Dude, I'll burn your fucking house down.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Another observation I had just about the Mad Men episode, with it starting off and ending in the yard and the whole sequence with the birds. The opening felt very ethereal to me. It felt like a dream episode. Just with the music and how they cut it, and then there's these birds flying, and then we end in the front yard too. It felt very much like a dream. Like this is Betty's existence is very dreamlike. Just an observation that I had.
I would say, I'm halfway through season 4 of Sopranos, and there have been at least 3 like jarringly obvious dream sequences. And I mean, they're done well and they're interesting and I like them, but they're super duper on the nose. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't seem like Mad Men. Don gets his hot tooth fixed and he's tripping balls on laughing gas, and you have that sequence. But it like catches you off guard. You're like, oh shit, and then you realize he's dreaming. Whereas Sopranos, like frame 1, you're like, this is a dream.
Yeah,
this is weird.
Yeah.
Why aren't you even letting me realize this is a dream?
Yeah.
So, sorry to shit on Sopranos.
No,
I do like Sopranos. I'm enjoying it immensely.
It's fine. As I said a million times, like, I'm a fan of things, but I'm not a delusional fan of things. I can acknowledge when something sucks, or when something is.
I think we also need to acknowledge that Sopranos created the mold, and to create the mold, you make more mistakes.
Yeah.
And I am probably holding Mad Men on a higher pedestal. I'm like, oh well, it doesn't do all this stupid shit, and it's like, well, it learned from Sopranos mistakes, so like we have to give deference where it's deserved.
Yeah, and also I just think in general the first season of The Sopranos is my least favorite for all of these reasons, and stuff they figure out, and the show gets more refined and gets more honed and focused every single year it goes on. But like, to look at my top 20 list of Sopranos episodes, I've got maybe one of the top 20s in the first season. It just doesn't connect. It's not there yet. And
Yeah.
I think all the issues we've talked about today um, bring that home.
I have both Don and Tony getting their way without saying anything. Tony just like stands next to the hat guy at the restaurant until he takes his hat
Yeah.
off. And Don, well, I guess Don did technically say something, but I think his presence was more of the impact. Pete stands up, is like, "We're done here," and Don's like, "No."
Yeah. Yeah. That was such a funny scene where Harry compliments Don about what a good job he did, and Don just like doesn't say anything and just keeps looking right down the list, waiting for everybody to compliment him more before he'll do anything or before he'll even like react.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was
Yeah,
hilarious.
I have that. Everyone calling Tony a genius and everyone calling Don a genius.
Yeah. Yeah. That was hilarious. What would you rather have received as a gift to bribe you, the golf clubs or the big TV from 1999?
Well, seeing as how I am not an avid golfer, I'd have to go with the TV.
The big CR2 TV, the big like.
I'm pretty sure I literally had that exact
Yeah.
TV. Like my dad bought that in the year 2000 and then bequeathed it to me in like the year 2006.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, in your apartment.
That was, dude. To this day, I'm not sure like I've seen a better picture than that screen.
Yeah. I remember buying one for my dad one year for Christmas and having to like go and buy it and have him deliver it. Yeah. It was just like that. I do like Clarence. Paulie refers to himself as Clarence when they go to the soccer coach's house, and that's he continues to do that. He refers to himself as Clarence to people, to normal people throughout the entire series. I think that's hilarious. That's his go-to name.
Oh,
yeah,
that's great.
So that was a cute little button on there.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else do you got, man? I'm running low on these two.
Yeah. Well, these are, thus far, my least favorite Sopranos episode, and I'm now realizing this might be my least favorite Mad Men episode of at least the ones we've watched so far.
Yeah.
But there's still some great lines, like the scene where Roger is talking to Don about going to McCann, and Don's like, "I haven't made up my mind," and Roger's like, "I'm taking this very personally," and Don goes, "Why? It's business." And Roger's like, "Is it?"
Yeah. Yeah.
So good.
Well, I thought that was good. It makes you think about everything they've went through in the last couple of weeks. And, just where Don's head is at. Does he still want to stick it to Roger? Does that cross his mind too?
Oh, I didn't even connect those dots.
That when he's like, it's just business. He's like,
is it?
Yeah, is it? Like there might be another step to this.
Dude, okay, that might prove your point that Roger was aware that Don instigated everything.
Yeah, and now this is another opportunity for him.
That might put it over.
Yeah, that at least from Roger's point of view, this is just another thing. It's another feather in the cap of what's Don planned. What's he got going on in there.
I have McCann has his own gay art director, and he's married to his sister.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah, I noticed that too. We get another gay gentleman on Mad Men who's also the art director.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and I mean, you're like, we see Sal operate. We're like, man, that's fucking brutal. But then it's like, this guy's married to the owner's sister. Like McCann knows this guy's gay.
Yeah, you'd have to at that point, right?
Yeah.
Now it's just all a marriage of like arrangement and convenience, right?
Yeah, it's Game of Thrones. Like McCann's life is Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, I thought that Ken's reaction to just getting like fucking clocked by Pete was like amazing. He's like if someone just clocked me in the face, like I don't know if I would have the wherewithal to respond in like a even I would be like pissed off and angry and like scared probably. And he's just like, Pete, you just sucker punched me in the face.
Yeah. It's I'm gonna chalk that up to just more oddities in this episode.
Yeah.
Like I don't feel like that response is normal or what you would do. um I even Harry right after that, he's basically like, you guys had a fight, it didn't involve me, and if you guys don't patch it up, then I won't get any tonight. Like, wait, what?
Yeah.
I
Maybe maybe we've discovered the lull in the writing process like hits around episode 9.
Yeah, this is right at the end of. Would this kind of be in the middle of Act 2? Because we haven't, really begun the final act. We haven't. We're setting the stage for it, but we haven't had that like incident to really kick it off. Is this it?
Well, it might come down to, we just have too much screen time to fill, and there's nothing interesting or impactful enough to put here to really make an episode. So we kind of just gotta just smash some shit together.
We got to fill this up
and hope no one notices that it's not fitting.
Yeah, because
honestly, I didn't notice it until we're doing this deep dive. Like, I knew that I didn't like this episode of Sopranos, but I had no real issues with this Mad Men episode until I watched it last night.
Yeah. And I watched it first thing this morning, so I was in the same boat with you. Yeah, I think there's only so many hours you can fill. Well, let's take a look at it this way. What of the major plot points of the season are any of them really touched upon or moved in either episode?
No.
We get Don, who is Don Draper, his life of the hobo. We touch on that here a little bit with the McCann offer, but also now we're up against like everything we know about him. Wouldn't he just take this role? And over on The Sopranos, we have Tony and his relationship with the mob bumping up against his family in the real world. We get that with the soccer coach, but also the stakes don't match, and we're also feeling a little bit of a disconnect there. So is there any other thing that can we remove both of these episodes from the canon and miss anything? That's what I'm getting at.
I think we easily could remove these episodes.
Yeah. And I think that's something to keep in mind when next week starts. The only thing that plays a role later on in The Sopranos that I can think of is the whole, this is what's used to drive a wedge between Uncle Junior and Tony and cause Uncle Junior to eventually put the hit out on Tony. But couldn't that have been done a different way?
Some just popped in my head. So if you're looking for a concrete reason for Don not to accept McCann's offer that is not as ambiguous or badly communicated as him not wanting Betty to model, McCann says, I see you with a 3-year contract.
Yeah.
And then Don says, $45K, no contract. It's like, okay, well, he just doesn't want to do the contract, and that's why he says no.
Yeah, because he doesn't get the he gets the no contract at Sterling Cooper.
Yeah. Like that, you're like, oh, I get it. We just saw his Hobo Code episode. This clearly makes sense. That's why he would say no.
Yeah, that is the reason it makes sense. That line of Don's is ultimately why I have a problem with the finale. Is that Don and his hobo lifestyle and who he is, he always portrayed himself as more than just an ad man. That he was going to go do something else at some point. And my problem with the finale is we spend the entire final year with Dick Whitman removing the elements of Don Draper from him, his family, his job, his home, only in the end to go back to being an ad man.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that line. It makes sense where he's like, if I ever leave here, it won't be for more advertising.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
then Don eventually
It's all.
does leave to go do more
Yeah,
advertising.
yeah, yeah. It would have been better if they, it was cool to see him meditating, and then obviously that classic Coca-Cola song plays, but maybe he instigates the Coca-Cola song ad campaign and then walks off into the
Yeah.
sunset like kung fu style.
I still think the true finale of Mad Men is the penultimate episode. That's after that, I feel like they got too cute and wanted to do more, because that finale is where we get shoehorned with Peggy and the art guy, and they're all now magically in love. And then Don comes back to do this, and we get another couple scenes with Betty that don't make sense. Where with that penultimate episode, we have Peggy go off to her new role. We have Don come to terms with his time with um, his past in Korea and with his identity. And then we're left with Don sitting there on a park bench with all the money that he's made from being Don Draper off to go do something else. So, that this line in this episode also taints how I feel about the finale.